The wealthy don't ask, what's the cheapest option? They focus on where's the greatest value. So if you're stuck in the scarcity mindset, this one shift could change everything for you. Tune in. Hello, my fellow Ripplers. This is Chris Miles, your cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor. This show is for you if you're focusing on trying to become work optional, where you have enough passive income coming in to be able to work because you want to, not because you have to. You work by choice. You actually be able to do what you love with those you love, but you're not just here to get rich, because you're also here to live a rich life. As you're prospering financially, as you create more than enough needs for you and your family, you also focus those resources on blessing the lives of others, creating a ripple effect throughout their lives. And that is exactly what I'm here to do today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for binging and sharing on these episodes. I know you guys have been going back through this. I know you guys have been getting a lot. And thank you again for a lot of the great comments. I know as we've been going through these money myths recently, you guys have been coming in saying this has been impactful. Thank you so much. Well, thank you. Again, if you ever have questions, reach out to us at moneyripples.com, including if you've got a great podcast idea that I should be sharing. I would love to hear it. So please share with us that at moneyripples.com. So why does chasing cheap could be the most expensive mistake you can ever do? Now, I know you've probably been in this place, but I know when I grew up, I was always focused on price. What was the cheapest price I can get? In fact, when I would go to the grocery stores, and I'm kidding you not, I still kind of do this sometimes, I will look at I used to calculate in my head, how much is the price per ounce? Man, could you imagine how elated I was when stores like Walmart, for example, started putting, here's the price per ounce. I was like, how can I get the most out of it? Guys, I even used to say to myself, I said, listen, if I can go on a date with a girl and it will be cheaper than the year I'm in. So for example, if the year was 1999, that means if I can go to dinner with that girl and it's less than $19.99, I knew I was winning, right? So yes, I focus on price a lot. I was the guy, even when I became a financial advisor, I'm focusing on, hey, let's turn off the heat in the wintertime, turn off the AC in the summer, and just try to save some costs. Because if we don't even sprinkle our lawns enough and things like that, if we just keep the costs down, then I have more money to pack away. And so I would always be focusing on price. However, does that work? Does that really, really work for those becoming wealthy? Now, if you read books like The Millionaire Next Door and things like that, they will constantly remind you that the millionaires next door who really don't feel like millionaires, maybe they're comfortable, maybe they're not, but these millionaires next door that they talk about and they interview, right? These people a lot of times do focus on just price. They focus on just those things. And what they don't often, explain, of course, is that what really creates true wealth and financial freedom. Because financial freedom, as I've mentioned before, is more of a feeling than it is a state of a number, right? Because there's no number that'll make you financially free. It's all based on scarcity versus abundance. Well, what do abundant, successful, and wealthy people do when it comes to looking at price? Do they focus on price or do they look at something else? I will tell you this from firsthand experience, right? It's about value. It's always about what do I get for that price is the more important factor. All things being equal, of course we'll go for the lower price, right? If I knew I was getting two things of equal value, I will pay that price. And this is the important thing to remember is that when you see a price and you pay a price for a certain thing, the one thing that it's not worth is that price. I repeat, if you go and buy something at the store, you go buy an asset or whatever it might be, whenever you buy something and you pay a price, the one thing it's not worth is that price. So let's talk about this, for example, right? Let's just say you go to a store and you see, you can buy a pair of pants there for $40, right? Now, if you decide you're going to pay $40 for those pair of pants, you're going to do that because you feel in your mind, or either in your mind, rationally, or even just as a feeling and emotion, you feel that those pants are worth more than $40. Because if you thought they're worth less than $40, would you pay $40 for them? No, of course not, right? Now, on the flip side, the store, right? If they sell it to you for $40, do they believe it's worth more or less than $40? For them, they believe that selling it for $40, really the pair of pants, is worth less than the $40 they get from you. If that makes sense. So they value the $40 of cash over the pair of pants. You value the pair of pants over the $40 of cash that you have in your pocket. Therefore, you guys don't have an agreement. But this is where it creates a win-win. This is where actually, if you realize the free markets and transactions, when people aren't lying to you and doing different stuff that way, but when there's honest people engaged in transactions with each other, this is where you realize it's always a win-win transaction. Because if you were willing to pay $40, it's because you thought they were worth more than $40. But they're willing to sell it to you for $40. That's why they think it's worth at least a penny less than 40, which is why they're willing to accept the $40. They value the money more than the pants. You value the pants over the money, right? Therefore, the one thing it's not worth is $40. Same thing. If you buy a house, say you buy a house for $500,000, if someone's willing to sell it to you for $500,000, it's because they believe it's worth at least a penny less than $500,000, or they wouldn't sell it for that. They would leave the price higher. But you bought it for $500,000 because you thought it was worth at least a penny more than $500,000. Therefore, when you get an appraisal on your house, the one thing it's not worth is the appraised value of $500,000 or whatever you bought it for. Think about that. Think about how it's always value in your mind. Now, take that into a more abundant perspective. So many people will just look at price. I've learned this firsthand. Like, I remember buying the cheapest blenders you can get, like the Oster blenders, right? You know what they are. You've seen them. They're $20 or so, $25, right? You buy them at the store and they're going to break down within the year. And not to mention, if you try to put ice in those things, you're going to be chewing ice chunks forever, because it doesn't matter how long you blend it for, they'll never chop up all the ice chunks, right? You can imagine my surprise when I saw a BlendTech and I said, holy cow, that thing is $300. Why would I pay $300 for a blender? Now, did it help that there's some other people that said, hey, it's actually worth it? Okay, cool. That helps, right? It helped to get like that little extra testimonial. But where it really helped, of course, is when I got to see it in action, when they demonstrated it for us. I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. So, of course, and then I knew too, there was a guarantee, especially when you buy it from Costco, right? Because you always return it anyways. And so I tried it out and I fell in love with it. I love the blender. In fact, I loved it even more because after 1,000+ uses of it, the blender like broke down, like the motor wasn't working right. I took it into BlendTech and guess what? They gave me a new one, right? And they'd go fix it, or they would fix the old one and then give you a loaner or something like that, right? So they were able to negotiate and figure out different ways to help me be happy, so that I always had this like almost like this lifetime warranty on my blender. So again, value. So for me, I could keep buying a $20 blender every year, and when it breaks down and not necessarily like the quality, or get a higher quality blender. And yeah, maybe it will take me 15 years to make my money back, but is that worth it? Sure. Yeah, I get lots of uses out of it and I've done it. So in my mind, for the value and the quality that I get, it's worth it to me. Now, again, if it were like the same exact blender, I'm gonna go for the cheaper option, hands down, right? That's a given. I love saving money. I love not spending it. Heck, my wife made fun of me just last year because the Tokyo Marathon was being broadcasted live on YouTube. And I'm watching kind of towards the end of the marathon, because obviously, I'm a marathoner. I love marathons. I'm watching the Tokyo Marathon, but there's a big block right in the way saying, hey, if you want to see this, you got to pay $1 to view it. It was like a pay-per-view for $1. Did I pay that $1? Nope, I didn't. Could I have? Yes, I have more than enough dollars to make that worthwhile. I spend way more money on stuff. I spend way more money on this podcast per episode than I do on that video. But to me, it just wasn't worth it. So again, it came back to value. Is it worth it to me? Is the value there? That is the question you should always be asking. Is it worth it? Is the value worth it? I find it so fascinating that sometimes people, especially business owners, right? Business owners, they're all about trying to find the right value. They will drop tens of thousands of dollars on something that they hope will make them money, right? They hope will make them money whether it's through marketing or through increased sales or whatever it might be. They will pay through the nose to get that kind of benefit. But you send them back home and all of a sudden they're like, their kids or their wife asks them to pay for something. They're like, nah, I don't know if that's worth it. Right? Maybe it's not worth it to them, but again, now you're dealing with other people too. So value is really, it's all in our heads. It's all in our minds. And sometimes we do it is an emotional decision in many, many cases, but it's also a rational one too. Let me show you an example here in our business, right? If you've been following this podcast, you're probably looking for great ways to create passive income right now, right? Well, we got you covered here with Central Lending. Central Lending specializes in alternative investments that actually are designed to create steady returns and long-term financial security for you and your family. Now they prioritize transparency. They love, building those strong relationships, giving you that confidence and peace of mind, knowing that you have your money working harder for you, so you don't have to work so hard for that money. You want to learn more how to do that? Go to centrallending.com and check out what they've got today to create your passive income and wealth creation right now. Okay, so this is a text I got from a client. Now, what's fascinating is this guy. Yes, he's multi-millionaire, right? Very successful. But as we sat down and chatted, I actually went to his office in Florida and we sat down and chatted. Actually, one of my clients introduced me to him. Shout out to you. You know you are. But I'm sitting in his office and we're talking. And he was talking about how he's like, yeah, like I actually do a lot of real estate investing. He's like, but the problem is I spend probably 10, 20 hours a week looking at deals and trying to see if they're good or not. And I told him, I said, hey, listen, the truth is, you could do that a lot easier. I'm like, I've actually spent years developing my network of people. And the thing is that there could be some good things done. He's like, oh yeah, is that what you do? I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I got all kinds of people. And he even brought up, he's like, yeah, like for example, my financial advisor brought up this particular guy, this particular group. I'm just not sure if they're good or not. I said, it's funny you mention them. I've known that guy for years. Him and I've been friends for years, and he's actually a member of our group. He's actually in our group. So yeah, he's a great guy. So what was kind of cool is like this guy, I mean, he went into our high level program that we had here. For him, it was well worth it. He's like, I'm going to do it. Here's what's cool. This is the text message he sent me. This is just, I think just after a month or two. I mean, this guy, he started like doing investments like crazy. He was ready because remember, he was doing it all himself. Now we're able to spoon feed him, say, here's deals. Here's some guidance to see which ones might be best in your situation, right? And he's like, he just went running with it. And so he's like, hey, Chris, I had my meeting with Craig. He's our coach, as you guys have seen before. He's Olympic level all the way around. You guys are incredible. Thank you. I said, hey, that's great to hear. I'm like, by the way, your calculated numbers showing 800,000 more passive income. That wouldn't be too shabby either, would it? you know? And and by the way, he actually like, sported our t-shirts, like I'm wearing one of our t-shirts, Live Your Life Now. I had, we sent all of our clients, like a t-shirt, like, I love passive income type t-shirt or cashflow freedom, those kind of things. And he was wearing that with his son at a baseball game and stuff. So it was really cool to see that. So for him, like tens of thousands of dollars to hire us to do that for him now has become a no-brainer. Now, of course, there had to be value justified, right? Let's say, like, listen, like if you can make 800,000, would 25,000 be worth it? It's like, yeah, of course it would. It's 800,000 a year versus 25,000 one time, right? That's the high end of it. We have varying amounts depending on how much money we can help people make or improve their cash flow by. But that was the high level right there. For him, it was a no-brainer, right? He's like, no, that makes perfect sense. I'm surprised when I get people that are like, they have $1 million and they have a financial advisor who charges them 1% a year, $10,000 a year to do literally nothing. Every year when they meet with them, they're just like, yeah, looks like you're doing good. Keep saving. The financial advisor does jack squat except to try to meet with them. And they charge them like 10 grand a year in fees. And if they lose money, the financial advisor still gets paid, right? Where with our clients, like, no, we're like here to say, listen, you can make more than what you pay us in that first year. So again, we focus on that value and we use that almost as a litmus test to see, are they so entrenched in scarcity that they can't get over price? And by the way, we're not even the most expensive. That's the crazy part. We're not even the most expensive. We offer more value than people that might charge double what we charge, way more value and better results. Like we've proven it again and again, which is why you go and look up on, Google, Google reviews. Like we've got an amazing amount of great positive reviews for that very reason. It's because we don't take a client on unless we know for a fact we can make them more than what they pay us in that first year. And we only charge an upfront fee. After that, we charge a small, tiny monthly retainer. And that's the other thing. Some people get into so much scarcity, especially recently, especially as money's gotten tighter for a lot of people. We've had some people say, hey, I know it's only like a few $100 a month to stay on retainer with you guys, but I just don't know. Now, what they're saying is, I don't know if the value is worth it for me. But what I have to also understand too is we have to keep explaining. It's like, listen, there's deals that you did. In fact, we've had other clients where they went and they kind of broke off that communication, right? They didn't pay our monthly retainer. They went away and did their own thing. They kept using maybe some people that we don't recommend anymore because markets shifted and we might say, hey, this is not a good time to invest with those kind of people right now. What do? They invest with those people because they didn't hear that from us because they weren't in our network. They weren't tied into ourselves, as coaches or even to our own clients who also kind of see what's going on and they can talk to each other. And so as a result, what happens, like they're like, yeah, a few $100, I don't know if it's worth it. And then what happens? They might lose a few $100,000 because they broke off that contact, right? Talk about value. Like that's the big thing I try to illustrate for so many people so many times. So I think it's kind of interesting. I'm like, man, like for compared to what you would be paying for a crappy financial advisor that comes out of fees that you don't see, that's the difference, right? Where they're paying out of pocket. A lot of those things are embedded into taking away from their returns and other things like that. They just don't notice it as much. But for our people, they make way more money, way more. And I even laugh too. It's like some people is like, hey, you might pay $17,000, but if you can make 80,000 a year per year from a one-time $17,000 investment, and even if we just round up to $20,000 investment, would you do it? Like, would you do an investment that you put in $20,000 one time that would pay you $80,000 a year forever? Yeah, of course, right? That's a no-brainer, dumb investment. That's why even when I've hired business coaches, I know so many business coaches will use something similar. They'll say, hey, listen, I guarantee within the first 4 months of doing our strategies, you will make your money back. So they try to make sure that there's always that kind of like that it's not like a guarantee per se, but they're like, no, it will happen that way. Or we will make sure we keep working with you until it does. We kind of do something similar for that very reason. It's like we want to make it like a no-brainer, like it's a no-brainer investment. I think it's so funny that somebody like say somebody invested, you know, money with a financial advisor. Let's just say it's 20,000 bucks you have invested with a financial advisor. If you were to make 10% or 2,000 bucks a year, you would be thrilled, especially because that's better than average in the stock market. But I'm telling people like, hey, if you pay us say $20,000, that's probably because you're going to make at least 30,000 or more dollars per year. Okay, that's a big difference than just 2,000 bucks, right? So understand like it's again, it's always perception. And sometimes if especially if you're a business owner, you have to kind of help spell it out for people to perceive that value. That's why we get thrown with so many ads and things like that. I mean, when you buy a car, I mean, think how much money you might drop on a car. Like you might be not just dropping money cash on a car, you might be financing a car, which costs you even more with interest over the years. You might be buying a car for over 50,000 bucks and it's a depreciating asset. And how much money does that car pay you? Nothing. Now, it might get you from point A to point B. It might get you to work, but you could buy a cheaper car than that and get you to work too, couldn't you? Yes, you could. So why do you buy a more expensive car versus the cheap lemon, right? Why don't you just buy the cheap car like Dave Ramsey would tell you to do? All about value and perception, isn't it? So, that's the thing is like wealthy people and successful people always focus on value. What can I get with that value? And they're looking for that ROI on that money. And it might be more of an emotional thing. I know that I don't always make more money per se if I get chiropractic care done, but I do know that my overall health and wellness do help. Getting massages all the time. Hey, I invest easily between supplements and massages and chiropractic and other things with my running, which pays me no money, right? Just so you know, I do it just because it's fun. Easily, probably pretty close to nearly $1,000 a month goes into that. Buying running shoes every 6 months because I burn through my shoes because I'm running like almost a couple thousand miles a year, right? So my shoes only last like 800 miles. Think about that. Like I'm burning through money with that, and I get paid zero. The ROI is zero, but I enjoy it. I think it's fun. I'm even thinking about buying a bike for several $1,000s just to go mountain biking with friends and just explore some more and things I wouldn't do on a run because I don't want to run that far, at least not for that long, right? So think about it. Like we buy stuff all the time. It should be at least based on value, not price. If I were to buy that cheap mountain bike, maybe that one that's like a few $100, what if that thing just breaks on me? I have to go buy another one anyways. I want good quality. Even when I buy food nowadays, guess what? I don't focus on the menu of price as much as I do as what I'm getting. And it's like, hey, what do I want? And sometimes I'll even say, I want this and this. Sometimes I'll be like, you know what? I'm craving this, but I'm craving this too. I'm gonna get this, or maybe I'll get a side of this in addition to it. They're like, you want to buy the side alone? Yes, I do. Plus that meal. Give me that meal. Plus I want that salad too. And that's the thing. Now, granted, you might say, yeah, but Chris, I don't have that much money to do those kind of decisions. Fine, that's great. Take the principle and apply it to your own life. Maybe it's not like you're spending 40 bucks at a meal. Maybe it's $5, right? Maybe it's $10, whatever it might be. Focus on what am I getting for the value? Do I want to go cheap or do I want quality? Do I have to keep buying more quantity and that the headaches that come with that? Do I want quality? Do I hire somebody that's really cheap, but they don't give me the quality I need? Or do I hire somebody with better quality that I know the job's going to get done? Right? That's the thing is like there's so many considerations there when you talk about value versus price. Stop focusing only on price. Focus on value first, price second. That is what successful people do. That's what abundant people do. And that's how you become wealthy. Focus on that first, not on the price. Don't get caught up on what you're paying in dollars and cents. Get caught up on what am I getting? How can I actually get a better ROI? Can I do something, even improve the ROI on that kind of thing? And that kind of goes along with different stuff that you do, right? But focus on that. How can I get the best, the best value, not just the best price? So go and make it a wonderful and prosperous week by focusing on value first. We'll see you later.